"It hurts, Daddy. Please help me." That's all she whispered. No screams, no tears, just 5 words that broke a soldier's heart. He had returned home a hero, battle-worn, scarred, but proud. Yet nothing on the battlefield prepared him for what waited in his daughter's room: a quiet cry, a loyal dog, and a door that should have been closed, but wasn't. When the K9 barked at the empty room, the truth came crawling out. The winter wind slid through the trees like a ghost with no name, brushing against the rooftops of Haven Ridge, a modest mountain town tucked between snow-heavy pines and winding roads. It was the kind of cold that ached in your bones long before you stepped outside. Snow clung to the edges of mailboxes and drifted lazily across the 2-lane road leading into town, muffling the sound of everything, except the memory. Liam Turner shifted his weight as he stood beside his truck, parked on the edge of his ex-wife's driveway. 45 years old, tall and broad-shouldered, he carried himself like a man trained to calculate exits in every room. His hair, once deep chestnut, had grayed at the temples, and a short, unkempt beard framed his weathered jaw. Sharp lines cut across his forehead and beneath his steely blue eyes. Lines carved not only by age, but by years of sandstorms, night missions, and the kind of loss that clings to you even when the fighting stops. A thick military-style jacket wrapped around him, zipped to the neck, but the cold still managed to settle in. His gloved hand rested gently on the head of Duke, a 5-year-old German Shepherd K9 with a black and tan coat and a long scar across his front left leg, the only souvenir from their final mission in Syria. Duke was a soldier in his own right, alert, disciplined, and utterly loyal. He sat still beside Liam, ears perked, eyes fixed on the small house ahead, like he sensed something his handler could not yet name. The front door opened. Rachel stepped out, bundled in a cream-colored cardigan and jeans, her long auburn hair pulled into a loose ponytail. She had always been slender, almost willowy, with pale skin that now looked more tired than Liam remembered. There were faint creases around her mouth and eyes, not from age, but from the weight of things unsaid. She didn't wave, just gave him a tight nod. "Liam," she said flatly. "Rachel," he replied. Her eyes darted briefly to Duke. "Still bringing the dog everywhere?" "He's family," Liam answered, then paused. "Is she ready?" Rachel turned back inside, and after a few seconds, the little girl emerged. Sophia Turner was 5 years old and impossibly small for her age. Her blonde hair was tangled at the ends and pulled into a lazy braid that had half come undone. She wore a red fleece jacket zipped up all the way to her chin and leggings with faded cartoon animals on them. What struck Liam first wasn't her appearance, but her silence. She didn't run. She didn't smile. Her pale blue eyes were cautious, watchful. "Hey, sweetheart," he said gently, crouching down. "It's me, Daddy." Sophia hesitated, then took slow steps forward. She didn't speak, just looked up at him with a face that seemed older than 5, like she'd been learning to hold in too much. He opened his arms, and she walked into them, stiffly. He felt how bony her shoulders were through the jacket. "You've gotten taller," he murmured. "I clean the floor now," she said, so quietly it took him a second to process it. He leaned back. "You clean the floor?" Sophia nodded. "Mommy says she's too tired sometimes." Liam glanced up sharply, but Rachel was already turning away, back inside the house. A figure appeared behind the window curtain, broad-shouldered, watching. That would be Owen. Liam had never liked him. Owen Clark was in his late 30s, medium build, always clean-shaven with sandy brown hair slicked back like a businessman. He worked in something biotech, as Rachel once vaguely put it. More specifically, Liam remembered reading he was part of the research division at Helix Bio, a pharmaceutical giant with more controversies than ethics. Liam hadn't said anything at the time. Divorce makes men silent about a lot of things. Liam stood, taking Sophia's hand. "You ready for some hot chocolate?" She nodded slowly. "Do you still have marshmallows?" "For you? Always." As they walked toward the truck, Duke wagged his tail slightly and sniffed the air. Sophia paused beside him and reached out a hand. "Hi, Duke," she whispered. The dog nuzzled her hand gently and let out a soft whine. Liam caught that sound. Duke didn't usually do that. He filed it away in his mind. The drive into town was quiet. Liam stole glances at Sophia as she stared out the window. There were faint red marks on her wrist, like scratches or irritation. He almost asked, but didn't want to scare her. Not yet. At the cafe, he got her the biggest mug of hot chocolate they had, with extra whipped cream and marshmallows piled like snow. She wrapped her little hands around the mug, but didn't drink right away. Instead, she stared into it, eyes distant. "Do you like living here?" he asked. She shrugged. "It's okay, but sometimes the house is loud." "Loud?" She nodded, then looked up. "Not with yelling, just buzzing in my room at night." A chill slid down his back, one that had nothing to do with the wind. He kept his voice level. "Do you sleep well?" She hesitated. "I try to, but sometimes the red things crawl under my blanket." Liam froze. "What do you mean, red things?" She blinked. "I'm not supposed to say." "Says who?" Sophia bit her lip. "Uncle Owen says I'll scare Mommy if I talk about it, and I don't want to scare her." The rest of the visit passed in strained quiet. Sophia told him a few stories about school, none of them very detailed. She avoided talking about home. When it was time to take her back, she hugged Duke tighter than she did Liam. Rachel was waiting at the door. Owen stood behind her, arms folded. "She did fine," Liam said, "but she looks thinner. Everything okay?" Rachel's expression flickered like she hadn't noticed. "She's a picky eater." Owen stepped forward. "If you're done playing detective, Liam, maybe let us handle our house." Liam didn't reply, just looked down at Sophia. She mouthed the words, "Thank you," before slipping back inside. As he and Duke walked back to the truck, snow began to fall again, soft, steady, and soundless. But something inside Liam was not still. He hadn't been trained for fatherhood, but he knew when something was wrong in a room. And this time, the battlefield was personal. Liam couldn't sleep, not with the weight of Sophia's voice echoing in his head. "The red things crawl under my blanket." The words clung to his mind like frost on the windshield, sharp and unwanted. The rented motel room he stayed in was dim, with a single lamp casting pale light over the bed, but he hadn't even taken off his boots. Duke lay by the door, head resting on his paws, ears twitching at every creak outside. Liam sat in the chair by the window, jacket still on, hands clasped tightly together. The snow outside hadn't stopped since late afternoon. It coated Haven Ridge like a secret being slowly buried. From where he sat, he could see the road leading back to Rachel's house. A quiet street, no street lamps, just the dull blue of moonlight on ice. Around 2 a.m., he took Duke and drove, headlights off until they were near. He parked across from the house, engine killed. Duke sat up instantly, alert. They watched in silence. The house was dark. But as Liam raised the small military-grade binoculars to his eyes, the curtain of Sophia's upstairs window twitched. A tiny figure sat up in bed, not a movement from a dream. This was sudden, conscious. She looked to the side, lips moving, whispering to the air. No toys, no lights, just her, sitting stiff and speaking to someone, or something, that wasn't there. Then she flinched. Her small hands pressed against her ears, and she curled in on herself like she was bracing for something. Duke growled softly. Liam stiffened. They waited another 30 minutes. Nothing else moved. Still, Liam's gut twisted with every tick of the analog watch on his wrist. By sunrise, Liam had already formulated a plan. He stopped at the general store and picked up a small wooden puzzle box. When the owner, a short, round-faced man named Jim, with a thick mustache and gentle demeanor, asked if it was a gift, Liam nodded. "Something for my daughter," he said. "Just want her to know I'm not gone." Jim smiled. "Pretty little thing, your girl. Saw her at the school fair last fall. Quiet though, that one." Liam offered a half smile in return and left. By 9:30, he was knocking on Rachel's door. She answered, wearing a long, oatmeal-colored robe, hair damp from a recent shower. Her pale skin looked flushed, her expression half surprised, half exhausted. "Liam, what?" "I won't stay long," he interrupted, keeping his tone soft. I forgot to give Sophia something." Rachel hesitated. "Owen's working from home. I'll be quick." She nodded slowly and stepped aside. Liam entered, Duke padding behind him. The warmth of the house felt suffocating. From the hallway, he caught sight of Owen in the kitchen, wearing a gray sweater, khakis, and wireless earbuds in his ears. He was typing on a laptop, jaw clenched, not looking up. "Sophia's upstairs," Rachel said. "You have 5 minutes." Liam climbed the stairs quietly, Duke staying close. Sophia's door creaked slightly as he opened it. She sat cross-legged on the bed, coloring a page from a torn coloring book. Her head lifted at the sound, and her face lit up just slightly. "Daddy?" "Hey, sweetheart." He stepped in and closed the door behind him. "Brought you a surprise." She looked at the wooden puzzle box with curiosity. "What is it?" "Something special. But I also wanted to check how you're doing. Any more buzzing?" Sophia bit her lip. "It's quieter when Duke's around." Duke walked over and sat beside her, resting his head gently on her knee. She reached out and stroked his fur like it was the only thing in the world she trusted. Liam's eyes flicked to the bed. The pillow looked oddly puffed. He knelt beside it. "May I look at your pillow?" Sophia hesitated, then nodded. He lifted it, and his breath caught. Beneath the pillow, clinging to the sheet, were dozens, no, hundreds of tiny red organisms, moving sluggishly like mites but shaped unnaturally. They shimmered with a translucent glow. Duke growled low. Liam dropped the pillow and leaned down further, pulling at a loose floorboard near the bed's edge. The nail gave way with a sharp pop. Beneath it, a small crevice had been carved out, almost deliberately. Inside was a thin glass syringe, half filled with a reddish fluid, the color of dried rust and diluted blood. Sophia whispered, "They whisper to me when I'm asleep. They say I'm special, that Mommy can't know." Liam's chest tightened. He carefully resecured the board and stuffed the pillow back without touching the creatures. He pulled Sophia close. "Have you shown this to anyone?" She shook her head. "They said I'd ruin everything." "Okay, it's our secret now, but Daddy's going to keep you safe, I promise." He rose just as footsteps echoed on the stairs. Owen's voice, "Rachel said 5 minutes." The door opened. Owen stood there, arms crossed. "Something wrong?" Liam smiled tightly. "Just giving her the gift." Owen's eyes darted to Duke, who was now standing, still and alert. "That dog's too much. Rachel should have told you." "I decide when he's too much," Liam said evenly. "Come on, Duke." He hugged Sophia again, then walked out. At the door, Rachel stood wringing her hands, eyes flicking between the two men. Owen's face was unreadable, but something darker passed beneath his gaze as Liam exited. Outside, Liam let the cold air hit his face. It was cleaner than anything inside that house. As he walked to the truck, Duke let out a short bark, then looked back at the house. Liam looked too. He no longer felt like a visitor. He felt like a soldier behind enemy lines. Snowflakes swirled like whispers as Liam sat in the cab of his truck, parked just a short walk from Haven Ridge Elementary. The heater rattled weakly against the morning chill, and Duke, his 5-year-old German shepherd, black and tan with intelligent amber eyes, and a faint scar etched across his front left leg, sat poised in the passenger seat, ears erect, tail still. There was something in Duke's posture that mirrored Liam's own tension, alert, coiled, ready for the truth. Liam adjusted the collar of his dark wool coat, then stepped out and crossed the sidewalk. The school building was a low-slung, weathered structure with white brick and a slightly sagging roof. Kids spilled out from buses and minivans, laughter sharp against the silence of snow. But Liam wasn't here to smile. He was here to listen. To the quiet details people rarely spoke aloud. Inside, a small front office greeted him with warmth and the smell of sharpened pencils. The secretary, a middle-aged woman with a bob of tightly curled gray hair and a soft, weary smile, looked up. Her nameplate read, Marla Hendricks. "Can I help you?" Liam offered a calm, measured nod. "Liam Turner, Sophia's father. I was hoping to speak to her teacher, just for a moment." Marla glanced at the time. "You're lucky, Mr. Turner. Morning homeroom's just about to begin. I'll buzz her." Moments later, Sophia's teacher arrived. Miss Jennifer Blake, early 30s, tall with long auburn hair swept into a braided crown, faint freckles across her pale cheeks, and eyes that had clearly learned how to search for pain behind children's silence. She wore a thick charcoal cardigan over a maroon blouse, slacks tucked into waterproof boots. A quiet strength radiated from her. Someone who'd had to grow up fast, perhaps through family hardship or early loss. Liam could sense it. They stepped into an unused conference room lined with dusty books and plastic art bins. Miss Blake motioned to a seat but remained standing, arms folded, her expression cautious. "I assume this isn't a scheduled meeting," she said. "No," Liam replied, sitting. "I just need to know how my daughter's really doing, not what goes in the report card." Her shoulders lowered slightly. "You've been away." He met her gaze. "That's changing." She nodded once. "Sophia is bright, gentle. But lately, she's been exhausted. She's fallen asleep at her desk twice in the past week. There's something in her eyes. Dull, detached." Liam's throat tightened. "Any injuries?" Miss Blake hesitated, then sat across from him. 3 days ago, she raised her hand to answer a question. Her sleeve slipped back, and I saw something. An inflamed patch of skin with what looked like a faint orange residue. It didn't look like a rash. More like a reaction. "Did she explain it?" "She said it happens after the sticker. I asked if she meant a Band-Aid. She got quiet, then said Owen gives her special stickers to help her sleep." Liam felt the air leave his lungs. "She also asked me if dreams can leave bruises," Miss Blake added softly. When I said no, she looked disappointed. He stood. "Thank you. That's more than I expected." On his way out, Marla gave him a subtle, knowing look. "She's a good girl, your Sophia, but children hide things from their mothers when they're scared." Liam left with that sentence pressing against his ribs. Back in the truck, Duke met his eyes. Liam didn't speak, just started the engine and drove, but not toward the motel. He drove to the edge of the neighborhood where Rachel lived, parked beside a row of quiet homes, and got out. The snow had softened everything. Footsteps, voices, even suspicion. Duke trotted beside him as they made their way to the backyard of a pale blue house with a peeling fence and Christmas lights still dangling in January. This was where Mrs. Gwendolyn Price lived, an elderly widow known for sitting near the window with her knitting and a cup of tea. Rachel had once mentioned her as the nosy neighbor, but Liam now saw that as an asset. He knocked gently. A moment passed before the door creaked open, revealing a petite woman in her 70s with snowy white hair pulled into a tight bun. Her face was lined, but not unkind, and she wore a thick green shawl over a floral nightgown. "Can I help you?" she asked in a voice that still carried clarity and command. "Ma'am, I'm Liam Turner, Sophia's father." Her eyes sharpened. "You don't look like the one who brings home strange boxes at midnight." Liam blinked. "Boxes?" She narrowed her eyes. "The new husband. Always unloading unmarked crates from his car around 2 or 3 in the morning. Never uses the front door. Always alone. Always in gloves." Liam stepped forward. "Did you ever see where the boxes came from?" "One had a smudge. Looked like a medical label. I only caught the letters Helix." She paused. "They throw the packaging in the garbage out back. Black bags." Liam thanked her and made his way to the alley behind Rachel's. Duke sniffed ahead, nose twitching in the cold. Liam paused at the row of trash bins, all half buried in snow. He lifted one lid. Nothing unusual. Then another. Inside, half crushed under takeout wrappers and detergent bottles, was a thin cardboard box. He pulled it free, white, clean, stamped with a faded blue emblem, Helix Bio Pediatric Research Division. His breath frosted the air. Duke growled low, circling the can. Liam opened the box slowly. Inside were shredded medical packets, an empty syringe casing, and, most damning, 3 folded sheets of documentation. Printed on the top, Subject Trial ID, S. Turner. The notes were clinical, cold, weekly exposure, volume adjusted based on response window. No mention of consent, no parent signatures. Beneath it all, a used adhesive patch tinged red-orange around the center. Liam sealed everything in a freezer bag and tucked it into his coat. He didn't return to the motel immediately. Instead, he took Duke to the nearby park, snow-covered and deserted, and sat on a bench beneath the skeletal frame of a maple tree. The cold didn't matter. What mattered was that his daughter had become a case number, and someone had signed her away. The wind scraped against the windows of Liam's motel room like fingernails over old wood, but inside it was deadly still. He sat at the edge of the bed, arms resting on his knees, watching Duke's ears flick in rhythm with the shifting of shadows beneath the door. The German Shepherd, black and tan, 5 years old, lean and powerful, was unusually restless tonight. His instincts had never failed Liam before. That made tonight all the more crucial. Liam zipped his duffel bag shut. Inside, a compact surveillance camera the size of a quarter, a pin-style condenser mic, adhesive tabs, and a device that could passively record for 8 hours straight without alerting the house's Wi-Fi systems. Government grade. He'd used similar gear during reconnaissance ops in Kabul. Now, he was deploying it against his ex-wife's suburban home. Earlier that afternoon, Liam had called Rachel under the pretense of taking Sophia to the new bookstore in town. Rachel, still caught between politeness and discomfort, agreed, though Owen was conveniently absent during pickup. Liam had watched Sophia slip on her jacket without being asked, eyes darting to her mother as if for silent permission. She hadn't smiled. After the bookstore, they'd gone for hot chocolate at Haven Ridge Cafe, a cozy brick-front shop run by a retired couple. The wife, June Willoughby, late 60s, short and slightly stooped, had curly gray hair and warm brown eyes. She greeted Liam like an old neighbor, though they had only met once. Her husband, Frank, tall with a narrow face and a permanently bemused expression, handed Sophia a cookie on the house. "She's grown," June commented as Sophia shyly took her drink, "but too quiet for a child that age." Liam managed a strained smile. Quiet children hear everything. Sophia sat at a table in the corner, sipping slowly, her fingers red from the cold. When Liam handed her a new stuffed bear, she clutched it tightly. "Can I bring him home?" "Of course. His name's Oscar." "Will he be scared at night?" Liam knelt beside her. "Not if you tell him you're not alone." Sophia gave the smallest nod. Liam's heart twisted at how carefully she rationed her trust. An hour later, he brought her home. Rachel opened the door, her auburn hair tied into a tight bun, a cardigan wrapped around her frame like armor. She looked tired, darker under the eyes, lips paler than usual. She thanked Liam politely and led Sophia inside. As the door shut, Liam's hand hovered in his coat pocket. 20 minutes later, while Rachel was out back dumping laundry, Liam knocked again. "I think Sophia forgot her new bear," he said, holding up a duplicate Oscar. Rachel blinked. She didn't say anything. "She was pretty attached. Mind if I run it up real quick?" Rachel sighed. "All right, but just a minute." Liam nodded and moved quickly. Duke waited in the truck. Sophia's room was dim, quiet except for the low hum of the space heater. Posters of stars and planets decorated the walls, but the corners were curling and faded. He worked fast, slipping the camera behind the curtain rod above her bed, the mic beneath her dresser. He placed the small receiver inside Oscar's twin, tucked into the corner shelf. From the doorway, nothing looked disturbed. As he walked back downstairs, Owen appeared from the kitchen. Dressed in a crisp dark gray sweater and slacks, he looked every bit the man trying to impress a boardroom, even at home. His build was athletic, but stiff, jaw clenched, eyes narrowed behind square-framed glasses. "You forgot a bear?" he asked flatly. Liam didn't stop. "Happens. You've been circling this house like a stray." Liam tilted his head. "And you've been hauling around medical boxes at 2 a.m. We all have our quirks." Rachel stood frozen in the hallway. Owen didn't speak again. Liam walked out. That night, back at the motel, Liam watched the live feed from his laptop, earbuds in. Duke sat beside the bed, eyes trained on the door, as if sensing what Liam hadn't yet seen. At 1:47 a.m., the bedroom light flicked on. Not from a switch, something softer, more artificial. Liam leaned closer. A figure appeared, male, masked, wearing a hooded coat. He moved with purpose, quiet and quick. In his gloved hand was a small device, which he pressed against Sophia's left arm. She stirred, but didn't wake. The man peeled back a circular patch from beneath her sleeve and placed a new one. He adjusted the blanket, then left the room without a sound. Liam watched, breath shallow. The face had never turned toward the camera, but the movement, the posture, was burned into his memory. Owen. The next morning, Liam called in a favor. Captain Ross McCauley picked up after 2 rings. He had once been Liam's superior officer during a Black Ops tour in Jordan, tall, deep-voiced, and built like he'd been carved out of iron. Now 48, Ross worked for a low-profile federal agency tied to biomedical security breaches. "Didn't think I'd hear from you unless bullets were flying," Ross said. "They're not, but they might as well be," Liam replied, then explained everything. Ross didn't interrupt, just listened. When Liam finished, there was a pause. "Send me everything," Ross said. "Video, audio, packaging evidence, copies of those trial notes. If Helix Bio's in this deep, we'll find the rot. But you need to be careful, Liam. These kinds of projects, they don't like exposure." "Neither do fathers," Liam said, "when their daughters are the ones being used." After the call, Liam compiled the footage, files, and reports and encrypted them before sending the packet. That afternoon, Owen pulled into the driveway and stood staring at Liam's truck parked a block away. He didn't approach, just stood there, jaw locked, arms folded. Liam didn't look away. Something was shifting. The storm hadn't broken yet, but the pressure was building. The call came at 2:14 a.m. Liam was already awake, seated by the motel window with Duke asleep at his feet. Snow drifted quietly across the empty road outside, and the air inside the room felt thin, like it was holding its breath. Captain Ross's voice came low and clipped through the encrypted line. "We're green lit. Gear up." No questions, no hesitation. Liam snapped the phone shut and looked down at Duke. The German Shepherd lifted his head instantly, ears forward, eyes sharp. Liam gave a single nod, and Duke rose to his feet. 40 minutes later, a black unmarked SUV picked them up just outside Haven Ridge. Inside sat Ross, tall, imposing, with short-cropped silver hair and a square jaw built for war. He wore a thick, dark coat over a tactical vest, and his dark eyes barely moved from the files in his lap. Beside him sat Agent Nadira Lynn, a woman in her late 30s with tightly coiled black hair tied into a bun, bronze skin, and lean features. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. She didn't say much, but there was something in her posture that made it clear she'd spent years hunting ghosts in the federal system. Her voice, when she spoke, had a soft authority to it. "You'll stay behind me, Turner. We sweep the girls' room first. If the organisms are what we think, they'll be rooted under her bedding or walls. We'll isolate, contain, and extract." "Understood," Liam said, checking the sidearm Ross had handed him, not to fight, but to keep his daughter safe if things went wrong. The vehicle pulled up a block from the house. The snow was thicker now, swallowing the sound of their boots. 6 agents in black moved silently through the darkness, each carrying specialized gear, airtight cases, heat scanners, ultraviolet tracers. Ross signaled. They moved. Rachel's house was still. No lights on, no noise. Nadira bypassed the alarm system with unsettling ease, while Liam kept Duke steady beside him. Duke's body was taut as wire, nose in the air. They breached the door silently. Rachel was asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. Her face looked pale, drained, tension lines carved into her brow even in sleep. Ross signaled to an agent to keep her still. Liam and 2 others headed for Sophia's room. Nadira led, sweeping a handheld scanner near the threshold. It emitted a faint hum, then a high-pitched beep. "Confirmed," she muttered. "Organic anomaly detected." Liam's heart pounded as he entered the room. Sophia lay curled on her side, face toward the wall, Oscar the stuffed bear in her arms. She stirred slightly but didn't wake. Nadira motioned for Duke to remain by the door. The room's temperature was slightly elevated. The walls, beneath the surface, glowed faintly under UV light. Nadira knelt by the bed and peeled back the mattress. Liam's breath caught. There, crawling between the layers of padding, were dozens of glistening red mites, small, genetically engineered, almost crystalline in structure. They pulsed faintly as if reacting to Sophia's presence. One of the agents retrieved a small containment unit, sliding it beneath the bed and sealing it shut. A soft vacuum noise filled the space, and the mites were suctioned inside. "Parasites confirmed, genetically modified for protein extraction. Targeted," Nadira whispered. "Designed to harvest fluid through dermal absorption. Slow, invisible." Ross walked in. "Anything beneath?" Liam moved to the far corner, where the floorboards had been loose before. He pried one up with his knife. What he found made his stomach twist. A wooden compartment, hollowed and lined with foil. Inside were 7 glass vials, each labeled with a date, and all bearing a small tag, S. Turner. The liquid inside shimmered faint red, almost like diluted blood with a metallic sheen. Rachel had been awakened now. She stood in the hallway, robe clutched to her chest, barefoot and shaking. "What are you doing? What's happening?" Her voice cracked. Ross stepped out. "Ma'am, we're with the Federal Biohazard Response Unit. Your daughter's been subjected to unauthorized biomedical exposure. She's coming with us, for her safety." Rachel looked at Liam. "What? That's insane. What are you talking about?" Liam approached slowly, voice steady. "Rachel, under her bed, we found vials with Sophia's name. In her mattress, organisms pulling fluid from her skin. Did you know about the injections?" Rachel's face turned ashen. She shook her head violently. No, I swear, I thought they were vitamin patches. Owen said it was part of a new nutrition protocol for children. I never questioned." "Owen's gone," Ross said. "Left town around 1 a.m., cleaned out his office. No forwarding address. We're tracking him now." Rachel collapsed into a nearby chair. "Oh my God, what have I done?" Nadira re-entered, vitals unstable. The girl's showing early signs of immune collapse. She needs isolation now. Liam scooped Sophia gently into his arms. Her face was pale, lips tinged blue. As he carried her out into the night, her body trembled. "Daddy," she murmured. "I'm here, sweetheart," he whispered. "You're safe now." Duke walked at his side, growling softly as they passed the garden gate. Snow crunched beneath their feet as two agents cleared the path ahead to the waiting vehicle. The drive to the Federal Containment Center, over an hour away, felt eternal. Liam never let go of Sophia. He sat with her head on his chest, rocking slightly as her breathing grew shallow. Duke lay across their feet, his warmth steady, his eyes never closing. Ross sat in the front, giving orders via radio. Nadira adjusted Sophia's oxygen mask and placed monitoring patches on her arms. "She's strong," Nadira said softly. "Stronger than most." "She gets that from her mother," Liam replied, and Rachel, seated beside them, let silent tears fall onto her lap. No one spoke again until they arrived. As the center's doors opened and the team rushed Sophia inside, Liam turned toward the dark horizon behind them. The house in Haven Ridge was just a shell now, but the war wasn't over. Not yet. The air inside the Federal Containment Center was sterile and cold, every surface gleaming with white light and brushed metal. The hum of machines echoed in the high-ceilinged corridors, and the silence of the place was unnatural, like a hospital built for ghosts. Liam stood in the observation bay, fists clenched at his sides, eyes locked on the small window into the isolation chamber. Inside, Sophia lay motionless on the padded bed, her tiny frame dwarfed by wires and tubes. Her skin had lost its glow, now pale with a bluish tint, and a faint red secretion wept from the pores of her arms. A medical team in full biosafety suits moved around her like careful shadows. Liam felt a hand rest gently on his shoulder. "She's holding on," said Dr. Celine Navarro, the lead physician on Sophia's case. In her mid-40s, she was tall and willowy, with deep olive skin and streaks of gray through her tightly pinned black hair. Her brown eyes were perceptive, almost too perceptive, eyes that had seen children like Sophia before, in labs where protocols were cold and mothers weren't called. She wore no makeup, no jewelry, just her ID badge clipped to her plain blue scrubs and a quiet confidence that came from years working in biological emergency response. "She's showing signs of systemic rejection," she continued, her voice calm but urgent. "The parasites drained more than fluid. They compromised her metabolic immunity. Whatever was being extracted wasn't random." Liam didn't speak. He couldn't. Dr. Navarro tapped her tablet, bringing up a 3D rendering of Sophia's blood analysis. Red cells glowed brighter than they should have. "There's an anomaly in her immunity markers, a resilience we haven't cataloged. It's not synthetic. It's genetic." Liam turned to her slowly. "Inherited?" Navarro nodded. "Possibly. You mentioned military service. Were you ever exposed to experimental compounds, gene therapy, chemical augmentations?" Liam clenched his jaw. 2006, Afghanistan. A joint ops project called Vortex. We were told it was a vaccine trial, volunteers only. Navarro raised an eyebrow. "Did you volunteer?" "No," Liam said flatly. She paused. "Then it's possible your daughter inherited an immunological adaptation, one that the parasites were designed to detect and extract. They weren't feeding, they were mining." Liam's stomach turned. "Can it be reversed?" "We're preparing a transfusion protocol. We'll need your blood, plasma specifically. We can isolate the resilience markers and replicate them into a stabilizing serum for Sophia. He didn't hesitate. Do it! Within 15 minutes, Liam was in a separate room with a needle in his arm, bag slowly filling with his blood. Duke sat at his feet, unmoving, eyes fixed on the hallway door. A nurse moved efficiently around them. Nathan Reyes, early 30s, clean-cut with light brown skin and short-cropped hair, wearing dark green scrubs. His touch was gentle, his tone respectful. "You holding up okay, sir?" he asked. "She's all I have," Liam muttered. "You're doing good," Nathan replied. "I have a daughter, too. 6. Wouldn't think twice either." An hour later, Dr. Navarro and her team had synthesized a condensed version of the plasma into a bioserum. In the isolation room, Sophia's coiled body trembled. Alarms flickered red as her heart rate dropped again. "Now," Navarro ordered. A tech pushed the serum into her IV line. Liam watched through the glass, breath caught somewhere between rage and prayer. Duke let out a soft whine, his paws tapping restlessly on the linoleum. Minutes passed. Then Sophia jerked once, violently. Her fingers curled tight, and her lips parted with a small, choked sound. The monitors screamed, and then suddenly normalized. The red seepage stopped. Her body began to settle. Liam pressed both palms against the glass, eyes stinging. Sophia's eyelids fluttered. Her lips moved. The mic in the room barely picked it up, but Dr. Navarro turned, stunned. "She's speaking!" Liam didn't wait for permission. He shoved the door open. Biosafety clearance be damned. Sophia looked up at him, eyes glassy but conscious. Her lips trembled. "Daddy!" He dropped to his knees beside the bed, cupping her hand in both of his. Her skin was cold, but not lifeless. She was there, alive, his. "I'm here, baby girl. I've got you," he whispered. Behind him, Duke placed his head gently on the edge of the bed, tail wagging slowly, eyes full of quiet devotion. Sophia smiled, barely. "Oscar said you'd come back." "I always will," Liam whispered, voice breaking. Dr. Navarro didn't interrupt. She simply watched the screen, heart monitor steady, then turned to her team. "Stabilized. Begin recovery protocol. We're keeping her in quarantine for 72 hours. No exceptions." Liam didn't care about the rules. He didn't leave Sophia's side. For the next few hours, he sat there, hand in hers, while Duke lay like a guardian at the foot of the bed. Nurses came and went, new drips were added, her coloring returned slowly, her breath deepened, and the room felt, just for a moment, safe. Later that night, Ross appeared at the doorway, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. He didn't speak until Liam looked up. "Owen's being hunted," Ross said quietly. "Interpol pinged him trying to cross the border into Quebec under an alias. We've issued a full red notice." Liam nodded once. Ross stepped closer. "What you did here, it's more than saving your daughter. You exposed something bigger. We've traced the parasite architecture to a black lab linked to Helix Bio's private sector. We're building the case now." "Make it public," Liam said. "Burn them." Ross didn't smile, but there was something like pride in his voice. "We will." The federal conference room smelled like stale coffee and fluorescent light. Ross stood at the head of the table, arms crossed over his chest, jaw locked, as a projector flicked through images no one in the room could unsee. Blood-streaked lab tiles, tagged samples labeled with children's initials, documents full of jargon designed to dehumanize the crimes they described. Liam sat near the back, leaning forward, elbows on the table, eyes scanning each slide with a sniper's calm. He hadn't slept since Sophia was stabilized. She was still in isolation, monitored 24/7 by Dr. Navarro and her team. Duke lay curled at his feet, head resting on Liam's boot, ears twitching each time a new slide clicked onto the screen. Ross turned to the team. "What you're looking at is not theory, not extrapolation. These are verified documents obtained through a raid of Helix Bio's secure cloud drives. Thanks to our internal tech specialist, we cracked the encrypted folder, one that Owen Clark used under a dummy research credential." At the far end of the table, Theo Yates, early 40s, tall and wiry with pale skin, round glasses, and a perpetually hunched posture, clicked a few buttons on his laptop. Theo was the agency's cyber forensics expert. Brilliant, socially awkward, and perpetually chewing peppermint gum to avoid smoking again. His voice was soft but precise. The files were embedded in a folder named Sunset Vaccine Archive. Inside, we found references to Project Serum K21, an immunoadaptive compound originally developed for battlefield biogenetics, deemed unstable and ethically unviable over a decade ago. Liam narrowed his eyes. Who signed off on this revival? Ross didn't answer immediately. He pointed to the next slide. A headshot appeared. A man in his 60s, sharp-featured, silver hair combed back meticulously, with piercing gray eyes and a faint, rehearsed smile. Dr. Gregory Vance, Ross said, former chief of biomedical innovation at Helix Bio. Prior to that, he was a research professor at Helix-funded universities. He mentored Owen Clark 15 years ago. Their email records show Vance recruited Owen to restart K21 covertly, using the public-facing ImmunoWell project as cover. Theo chimed in, tapping through a set of dates. Vance funneled unregistered resources to a secondary facility in upstate Vermont, disguised as a sleep study clinic for underprivileged children. Liam leaned forward. How many kids? Ross answered quietly. 14. All under the age of 10. All displaying anomalies in immune or neurological response. We've located the facility. Teams are in position. Hours later, a convoy of black vehicles cut through the snowy pine roads of rural Vermont. The sky was a cold sheet of steel, low and unmoving. Ross rode in the lead SUV, eyes narrowed beneath the brim of his cap. Liam and Duke were in the second vehicle. Duke paced in the back seat, agitated. He smells something, Liam muttered. He always knows. The facility was nestled in a forest clearing, disguised as a shuttered wellness center. The windows were dark. A faded wooden sign out front read, Sleep and Stability. Institute, private entry only. Snow covered the walkway. There were no tire tracks. Ross gave the signal. The team breached the perimeter in under 3 minutes, fluid, precise. Inside, the facility was silent. Lights off. The air carrying the faint chemical tang of disinfectant and decay. White corridors branched in sterile patterns. Doors were marked with numbers, not names. Duke stopped near a wall at the far end of the corridor, his fur bristling, ears pinned back. Then he barked, sharp, insistent, echoing off the concrete. "What is it, boy?" Liam stepped beside him. Duke pawed at the base of the wall. Theo scanned the surface. Nothing on thermal. Liam crouched. "Feel that?" His palm brushed the baseboard, barely warmer than the rest. Ross barked, "Get me ground-penetrating radar, now!" 10 minutes later, a panel was uncovered behind a fake bulkhead. What lay behind made the room fall into stunned silence. A hidden chamber, no larger than a storage closet, soundproofed with thick foam, and inside, 3 small children, shivering, wrapped in hospital gowns, eyes wide with terror and sedation. A 4th child lay unconscious on a cot, a faint IV drip still connected to his arm. Duke whimpered and pressed himself against the entrance, tail low. They were rescued one by one. As the children were carried out to waiting ambulances, Ross turned to Liam. "Your dog's the reason we found them. We never would have picked up that heat signature." Liam looked down at Duke. The German shepherd sat now, head high, calm again. A soldier at ease, mission complete. Back at headquarters, the press release was drafted. Helix Bio denied involvement, but the documents and facility spoke for themselves. And deep in a holding cell, Owen Clark was finally in custody. He had been apprehended the night before, attempting to board a private flight in Montreal under the name Grant Vess. Ross interrogated him personally, but Gregory Vance had vanished. Ross and Liam stood in the operations room, staring at a single-file photo, the only trace left of Vance after he had cleaned his accounts and abandoned every traceable asset. "He'll resurface," Ross said. Liam didn't answer. He was watching Sophia's name being removed from a list of known subjects. Her name now belonged to the living. The tide came in slow, folding gently across the sand like an old lullaby whispered by the sea. Salt clung to the breeze, tangled in the morning sun. A small cottage stood a short walk above the dunes. Its whitewashed walls chipped but clean, its porch modest, wind chimes humming softly from the rafters. The scent of pine and brine lingered everywhere. Liam stood barefoot on the porch, one hand wrapped around a chipped ceramic mug. His beard was a little longer now, the silver in it catching the light. He looked older, not from wear, but from something deeper, a kind of peace earned the hard way. He wore a navy Henley shirt rolled at the sleeves and a pair of worn khaki shorts. His body still lean but no longer tense with vigilance. The war had finally stepped away from his shoulder. From the dunes below, the sound of laughter rose like sunlight. Sophia was dancing barefoot in the wet sand, her long chestnut hair bouncing as she ran. She wore a simple yellow sundress and a wide straw hat that flopped over her ears. Her skin had regained its color, healthy and clear. No sign of the angry red rash that once haunted her body. Every so often, she'd stop and crouch, drawing patterns in the wet earth with a stick, then leap away as the waves chased her toes. Beside her bounded Duke, the 5-year-old German shepherd, powerful yet graceful, with a thick black and tan coat and a long, jagged scar still visible across his left foreleg. He barked joyfully each time Sophia turned, tail wagging so hard it kicked up little arcs of sand. He had become more than a guardian. He was her shadow, her playmate, her silent knight. Liam stepped down the porch stairs and walked toward them, letting the sand hug his feet. The sun was warm on his face, and for the first time in years, the warmth didn't feel undeserved. Rachel arrived shortly after noon. She was 34 now, a slender woman with auburn hair cropped at her shoulders and light freckles across her pale cheeks. She wore a long blue dress and carried a woven tote with fresh peaches. Her smile was cautious but warm. The tension between her and Liam had softened, no longer brittle with old regrets. She had been cleared of any involvement in Owen's crimes, and though the guilt of ignorance still shadowed her face, it no longer consumed her. Sophia ran to greet her mother, flinging her arms around Rachel's waist. Duke trotted behind and circled once before flopping at their feet with a contented grunt. Liam and Rachel exchanged a glance. "You look rested," she said softly. "I sleep now," Liam replied, his voice rough but honest. "Turns out not listening for monsters helps." They sat together on the porch, watching Sophia build a castle from driftwood and seaweed. The quiet between them was no longer uncomfortable. It was earned. "I've started the paperwork," Liam said after a while. Rachel raised an eyebrow. "The foundation," he clarified. "The Sophia Foundation. We're partnering with a trauma clinic and 2 bioethics watchdogs. It's small, but it's something. Maybe we can stop this before it starts, for other kids." Rachel looked at him, eyes softening. "She's lucky to have you, even after everything." Liam didn't respond at first. He looked toward the sea, where Sophia stood on tiptoe trying to balance a shell atop her castle tower. "I wasn't there when she was born," he murmured. "Wasn't there when she took her first steps or said her first words. But when she cried, really cried, I heard her. I heard her, and I came back." Rachel said nothing. There was nothing more to say. The wind spoke for them, carrying the smell of salt and the promise of gentler days. Later that evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, Liam tucked Sophia into a bed by the window, the sea visible from where she lay. She clutched a stuffed fox in her arms, worn and stitched. "Daddy?" she whispered. "Yeah, Bug." "Are the bad people gone?" Liam brushed hair from her forehead. "They are. And if they ever come back, they'll have to get through me. And Duke." Duke, lying at the foot of the bed, lifted his head at the sound of his name, ears perking. Sophia smiled, eyes drooping. "I love you," she said. "I love you more," Liam replied. She closed her eyes, and the room fell into a quiet filled only by the sound of waves. Liam stepped out to the porch once more. He stood there as night crept in, the stars blooming overhead. The wind cooled, and Duke came to sit beside him, leaning into his leg. Liam looked toward the dark sea and whispered under his breath, more prayer than promise. "I came back for you, and this time I won't leave." Sometimes the greatest miracles don't come with thunder or light. They arrive quietly, like a child's whisper in the dark, like a soldier's return when all hope seems lost. Liam didn't just save Sophia with medicine or strength. He saved her with love, with faith that refused to break. And perhaps it wasn't just coincidence that led him back to her, but a guiding hand from above. Because when a father answers the cry of his child, when a dog stands guard over innocence, when a broken soul chooses to protect instead of hide, something holy stirs. We believe that stories like this don't just entertain, they awaken something in our hearts. If you've ever felt forgotten, if you've ever longed for a second chance, know this. God still works in quiet ways, through people, through love, through you. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment with a prayer for children like Sophia, those who are still waiting to be found. Subscribe for more real stories of hope, healing, and courage. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that miracles still happen, and sometimes they come with fur and a bark. May God bless you and your loved ones, and may we all learn, like Liam, to listen when love calls us home.